Alfa Romeo Tonale here in South Australia, just outside Adelaide. And as you can see by the weather and the car itself, it's a little bit rainy. It's not supposed to rain in Adelaide too much, but I can tell you it has been raining today and it will be for parts of our test drive. Now, what's interesting about this vehicle for me, yes, it's been a long time coming. The Australian market has been waiting for it for a while, but this is the mild hybrid version. It's going to be available in two model grades, Veloce and TI. Last year, I drove the plug-in hybrid in Italy. So I haven't driven the mild hybrid yet. I have driven the plug-in hybrid. I thought the plug-in hybrid was pretty good, so I'm looking forward to sampling this one on local roads. Now, interestingly, Alfa Romeo is telling us that 70% of Australian buyers are going to get the more expensive Veloce, and only 30% are going to buy the entry-grade TI. Let's take a look at the two models and find out which one we think you should be buying. Our pricing and specification story details the in-depth range, but to recap here, Alfa Romeo is keeping it simple. Two model grades, both with the same powertrain and simple options. TI starts from $49,900 before on-road costs, while Veloce starts from $56,400 before on-road costs. Standard equipment highlights include Alfa's DNA driving modes, more on that later in the review, a neat 56 to 44 front to rear weight distribution, plenty of standard safety inclusions, an electric limited slip diff, Brembo brakes, dual stage valve suspension and paddle shifters. The 1.5 litre variable geometry turbocharged four-cylinder engine makes 118 kilowatts at 5750 RPM, and 240 newton metres at 1500 RPM fed into a 7-speed dual clutch and front-wheel drive. There's always something artistic about an Alfa Romeo cabin, and the Tonale is no different. This is a beautifully designed and executed cabin. It looks fantastic, but I think most importantly, it also feels fantastic when you sit in here. So we're in the top spec Veloce, but it doesn't have the Lusso pack, so you don't get the leather trim. This has got the Alcantara inserted seats. Really nice with some red detailing through the vented section, looks good. And the rest of the cabin really has a sporty feel to it, which I guess in a way suits what it is that Alfa Romeo is trying to do with the positioning of the Tonale. But most important, I think, for buyers in this segment is the functionality of the cabin. It looks good, feels luxurious, it's well designed, but is it functional? And the answer to that is yes. It's not uncommon to get in Alfa Romeos and Fiats and some of the smaller European cars and say, I wish I had more storage, or I wish it was a little bit more practical. But this is pretty well done. So you've got smartphone wireless charging up there, but it's also a secure place to put your smartphone so it doesn't fly all over the cabin. You've got useful cup holders here, bottle holders in the door. The center console bin is big enough to do what you need it to do. The chargers are easy to access. It's pretty comfortable here inside the cabin as well. So I think all in all, for the type of buyer who looks at an Alfa Romeo, I think if you're buying this Tonale, you're not just buying a car to get from A to B. You're buying it because you want to interact with your car in a certain way. And I think in the way that Alfa Romeo has executed the cabin, you can do exactly that. Time to take it out for a drive. Unlike some other mild hybrids, Alfa's mild hybrid system can drive the wheels up to 40 kilometres an hour, so most of your low-speed manoeuvring can be undertaken in electric vehicle mode. Tonale weighs in at 1,491 kilograms, so it's not too portly, and as such, if you give it some throttle, it feels punchy enough. Most interesting to me at launch on the move were the drive modes. Advanced efficiency, as the name might suggest, is the most efficient way to get from A to B. As such, you'll ideally want to be in that mode around town to save as much fuel as you can. However, the dual clutch transmission isn't at its best in this mode and can feel snatchy, laggy, and not as precise as we'd like. To be fair, that's true of just about any DCT, which is another reason that I find myself asking manufacturers to reserve them for sports cars only. However, switch to dynamic and the Tonale comes alive. It feels like the whole personality of the vehicle changes, and crucially, the gear shifts feel sharper, more precise, and generally snappier. It makes for not just a more engaging driving experience, but also a more enjoyable one. The other factor that would play into my purchase decision is the ride quality. The range topper is firm, but it's not harsh, so if you really do want to buy the more expensive Tonale, it will feel taut, sporty, and responsive. However, the entry grade seems to me to be the unsung hero. On the smaller 18-inch wheels and chunkier tyres, it rides beautifully over any road surface. That significant lift in bump insulation counteracts any small loss of sportiness that you might encounter. I reckon it's the pick of the two-model Tonale range. So that the Alfa Tonale is an attractive SUV is actually unarguable. This is a beautiful looking little SUV, but it's an Alfa Romeo. We expected that. What I think is going to be most interesting is how the Australian buying public reacts to this SUV, because this segment, regardless of whether you're talking about the luxury brands or the regular brands, is highly competitive, and it's a real dog-eat-dog part of the market. Now, on that subject, I said at the beginning of the video that Alfa Romeo told us that they expect 70% of the sales to be the premium Veloce model like this one here, and 30% to be the TI. I suspect, and I feel like the TI is actually the smart purchase. We really liked the ride on the 18s. This has got 20-inch rims with skinnier tyres. We really liked the ride, especially on bumpy surfaces on the 18s with fatter tyres. I suspect that will make a lot more sense on regular Australian roads. So I feel like that is the pick of the two models. The other thing that I think you need to take into account, especially when you're driving the mild hybrid variant, and I'm really looking forward to testing this back-to-back with the plug-in hybrid when it arrives later in the year, is that you really do need to drive this vehicle in D or dynamic mode to get the most out of it. If you switch it over to advanced efficiency, which is what they suggest in the DNA switch on the dial around town, it's going to be more efficient, it's going to use more of the electric power, but it doesn't transition as smoothly from electric to regular internal combustion. You do notice the gear changes a little bit more. If you leave it in dynamic, it's a lot more fun to drive. As always, let us know what you think in the comments section below. Don't forget to hit like if you've enjoyed this video. Click on subscribe so you stay up to date with all of our latest content. And the full review of the new Alfa Tonale, that is over at drive.com.au.